Hi, I'm Sophie Milliken and welcome to the Ambition Accelerator Podcast. Today I'm talking to Sherry Coutu, serial entrepreneur and angel investor who serves on the boards of various companies, charities and universities. So, welcome to Sherry Coutu CBE, serial entrepreneur, former CEO, angel investor and non-executive director. And when I was doing my research into you, Sherry, I found so many interesting things. You've done so much, and I'm sure you'll share some of that with us today. So welcome, and really looking forward to talking to you about some of the themes that are within the book and hearing your own stories, experience, and advice. So welcome. So could we start off with you sharing with us if you always knew what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, so I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think I'm yet grown up, and I didn't have any firm fixed ideas when I was younger. I did at one point think that I might be a lawyer because I liked justice and I'd heard of a lawyer. I think the thing that put me on to entrepreneurship and my subsequent career were role models. And the most poignant one is probably Steve Shirley, who is a serial entrepreneur and was running her own business. And before I met, I didn't meet, I've now met her, but before I had heard about her, I'd never entertained the idea of running my own business at all. And I was 21 and I was studying at the LSE when I came across a case study on her. And so I think role models have been really important to me. That was that fueled my ambitions. The thing that it was another person, Richard Crusoe, who was a fellow classmate of mine at the London School of Economics, who was an entrepreneur, who told me I was an entrepreneur and that this was my calling. And again, I'd probably really never heard of being an entrepreneur at that point in my career. And I was interested to think that someone thought that might be my calling. Now, he was probably pretty correct.
What was it that he saw in you that made him identify you as an entrepreneur at that point?
Don't know. I should probably go back to him and I should probably go back to him.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I had shared with him that at that point I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and he told me I would be a terrible lawyer.
Oh.
So which is helpful because I had at that point that's what I thought. He had studied law and he had become an entrepreneur. So if maybe he saw something of himself in me. What he said to me was, "You'd be a terrible lawyer. Do you know what they do?" And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, I think I sort of know what they do, and I probably hadn't thought that much about what they do. And he said they're very detail-oriented people, and they help other people who are driving the agenda drive the agenda. But they're not the people who drive the agenda or make the decisions. He said, and you're not a person that wants to dot other people's I's and cross other people's T's. You want to be creating, he saw in me that he thought that I wanted to drive things and make things happen that didn't exist before. And I think he's probably right. I don't have a great, I'm not very good at details. I can do them and I've learned to do them, but it's not my true forte. And I have found myself enjoying starting up many things and also helping other people start up things and scale them up, not just starting. I think scaling is very important, as a very important part of entrepreneurship. But I think he saw that, I didn't want to be told what to do. And I'm not saying that being an entrepreneur is telling others what to do, but I think the creativity of working with a team to address a currently unaddressed issue is something that fires me up and still fires me up, which is probably why I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. because I'm still finding things every day that I want to do. Case in point, we were talking earlier where we just a couple of weeks ago launched a new endeavor called Digital Boost, which helps people who run small businesses skill themselves up so that they can address their customers online. Historically, it was not as necessary to do that. But in our COVID area, when you used to depend on footfall, all of those small businesses and charities who could depend on footfall and therefore historically could ignore upskilling themselves in terms of learning about websites, learning about social media, learning about reaching your customers online. Now they really need to do it. So we launched something just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm quite old. I hope that I keep on launching things. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I hope I keep on doing it until I'm 80 or 90, or maybe even after that. I hope that there's still fight in my belly to work with others to address really important issues forever. And that's what I think entrepreneurs do. We address issues that are unaddressed, and we don't accept the status quo. I'm still quite amazed that some people do accept the status quo. I'm absolutely perplexed when I meet people who do. But I do meet people like that. But I would wish everybody being impatient with the status quo and questioning it. I think it's a good attribute to have, particularly young women. Yeah. Well, and young men, young everybody, and old everybody. Everybody.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. So clearly you get really fired up about getting involved in lots of things, and that's brilliant. And you've been involved in some incredible things and continue to be. When you sort of, throughout your career, have you set yourself goals for each stage of your career or each position you've been in?
No. When I think of goals, usually for me, it's around a number of customers, engagement with customers, making sure that the product is working. Definitely don't have personal goals, but I'm often involved in a whole lot of different projects. And part of the joy is trying to think of how can we tell if that's working? And I have a real orientation around the customer and empathy towards the customer. And if you're, again, as an entrepreneur or as a business person, if you're taking care of whoever your customer is, then I'm not sure you need a plan for yourself, because if you take care of your customer, everything else will take care of itself. So I've got that belief. And it probably means that I'm open to opportunities, and being open to opportunities has been very, very helpful for me. And I think being alive and alert to other people sort of saying, geez, have you thought about that? It's like, no, I hadn't thought about that. It's part of learning. And I think that I didn't know when I was younger that we would continue to learn and escalate and accelerate our learning throughout our life. I think I erroneously thought that there's secondary school, there's university, and then maybe there'd be a hiatus in what I learned every day. And there's been no hiatus at all. And part of that, I think, is continuing to be curious about things and open to new ideas and people suggesting that you look a little bit more deeply along, into one thing or the other. It's definitely served me very well.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think that's what keeps you fired up about things as well, that curiosity and where that takes you. So if your goals have been sort of business orientated goals, and then obviously that's led on to other things, then when you've had success within all the various things that you've been involved in, have you, because they've not necessarily been your personal goals, they're I guess what's happened because you've performed well and you've achieved the business goals, but have you ever, or do you ever stop to reflect on how successful you have been and celebrate in any way?
It's an interesting question. I think the celebration is really super important, and I'd also say that sometimes your life, you spoke about business goals. I think balance in life is really important. And I have 3 absolutely lovely children and a husband and friends and family, and they are they're super important to me. One of the things that I do is I do time box things. So and I think that that's really, it's really important. As a probable workaholic, if I didn't shut off the weekends and say, no, we're not going, I'm not going to work at the weekend, this is family time. Or we spoke earlier about last night was my daughter's birthday, and I was a little bit on the back foot today because I had time boxes. I know this is family time. I'm not going to prepare for all of the stuff that I had going on before this interview because I wanted to devote that to the family. So when the kids were younger, I made sure that 20 out of 30 nights at 6 p.m. I was home by 6 p.m. and that I didn't do anything work oriented until the kids were in bed. So I think programming, particularly if you have the capacity to be to workaholic or just throw yourself into too many different projects, to me, sort of saying, well, what else is important, and what other messages am I sending to my family or friends if I'm not making time for everything. But on celebrating, I think with team members, celebrating is important. Last night was my daughter's 21st birthday. It was important to all of us to celebrate it together, and to plan for it together, and to reflect on, wow, 21 years ago, yesterday was the day I had my first child, and wasn't that amazing? And isn't it amazing that, my husband still puts up with me and we still enjoy each other's company? And we had 2 other children after that, and that was fantastic and important to celebrate. Earlier this year at Planners for Schools, we celebrated passing 1 million student employer encounters, and that's brilliant. This morning we have celebrated a launch with a major partner of Digital Boost, which was a project that didn't exist 3 months ago. Yeah. Pausing to celebrate is super, super important for all of us, and I'm not sure that I do it enough. I do try to do it, but it's really important. And maybe when we have our reflection time every day, and I think we should make sure that we pause for reflection time every day. It's like, what should I have celebrated today? And also, because you can get too busy. I can definitely get too busy and just go, and in this Zoom world at the moment, go from one to another to another to another. And I think that we need to catch our breath. It's important for us, lest we start to be imbalanced or have some, I think mental health issues also occur if we don't pause and reflect and celebrate, and sometimes put things right, because sometimes you don't have time to have those difficult conversations, and I make time for those difficult conversations. It's important for all of us.
Definitely. So I guess that leads us on quite nicely to talk in a little bit more detail about work-life balance. So having 3 children as well, clearly that's a huge responsibility. When the children were younger, how did you fit everything in? I mean, you mentioned time boxing. Is that something you've always done?
I have done time boxing I learned that from I think it was Charles Handy, who again was a professor, and he wrote a book, and I was at a lecture, and somebody asked him, how do you fit all of these things in? And he said, well, I think about what's important to me, and he's quite meticulous about it, and he goes, this is how it is. So I learned that from reading a book from somebody who was also very, very busy. So time boxing is super important. The other way of fitting everything in is, from the outside looking in, it may look like I have very disparate activities, but there's a constant stream and theme through my activities. There's, I've made sort of 70 plus investments in startups. Most of them are double-sided marketplaces. And once you've got your head around a model or a framework, then you can apply that very efficiently to a bunch of other things. I mentioned Digital Boost. It's a double-sided marketplace between people who have skills, digital skills, and people who want them, and don't have them yet. It's a marketplace. That's the same as LinkedIn, which I've been involved with for a long time. It's the same as Founders for Schools, which is entrepreneurship skills and getting them to students via teachers. So that's an intermediary. Same thing as Zoopla, which I made an investment in a long time ago. It's people who own houses and people who want to buy houses. So they're, but you think, my God, that's like education, that's recruitment, that's houses, but they are double-sided marketplaces. So there's a theme through that. There's also a theme of software. I'm very, very comfortable in the world of software and understand it. So, so it's these themes, be in business, it's simpler for me because I view them through colored glasses. It means that I can help the people who are running those perhaps see things more easily. It may be, it's like, oh, well, that's very similar to what we did in housing, or that's very similar to what we did with, with Love Films, sort of 5 years ago. I've met that problem before. It's in a different industry, but this is how you can think about it. So
that's really interesting, actually. I'm going slightly off on a tangent here, but I guess that's a really great example of transferable skills. So you don't necessarily have to know the inside out of everything. And I think this is an important thing to reflect on for young people that are entering the careers market, who feel that, they've had their education going down one particular path and they feel that they have to go down one route. But actually, when you get into business or whatever organization you join or start, actually opportunities happen and your path can change, and it's being open to those opportunities and being able to take those skills that are transferable and apply them to other things, rather than thinking you just have to go down that one path.
Well, I think that's hugely, hugely important. I think we navigate a journey throughout our life. And I think thinking that, again, when I was younger, I thought I'm going to be a lawyer. And that's the only thing I thought. Until, again, Richard told me that I would have been a terrible lawyer. And then I sort of expanded my viewpoint to other things that maybe I could do that I wouldn't be terrible at. One of the things that I learned from LinkedIn and being affiliated with them for such a long time as an advisor is every single individual now between graduation and retirement at the moment is 25 different jobs and 6 to 7 identifiable career themes. And if you think about that, then it's not about a job, and you shouldn't be totally stressed about your first job. And also think about, before your first job, you've probably got 5 or 6 work experience or internships. And that will make you more capable of making a wise decision for your first permanent role. But just thinking about what we need are skills of agility, problem solving, communication, so that we can navigate ourselves through unclear waters. And what we need is the ability to, sort of route a boat, rather than getting into a boat and saying, "Oh, well, I don't, I can't do that." And it's more exciting when you look about that, when you look at that it as a journey, and you think, well, what are the frameworks that I need for navigating this? I need some skills that are in demand. And the most important thing for me is I want to work on things that I feel excited about and that I think are important. And in the times in the past when I've navigated away from things that I found myself doing, and there's been on many occasions I've sort of got involved in a project or an entity and thought, I'm really not having fun here. And I think the important thing, if you're not having fun, is to reflect on, I'm not having fun. Maybe my skills would be better off elsewhere. And I'm going to do that. So some people said that, wise owls are really clever about what they're not good at, as opposed to, thinking really hard about what they are good at. Even the avoidance of things that you don't like is navigation into your areas of comfort.
I love that you've said that, because I think, when I think back to sort of 20 years ago when I was leaving uni and starting out on my career, I did think that you kind of chose something and you just stuck with that. So I think it's really important to have these conversations where people can reflect on their careers and where they've taken them, and actually make it really clear that that's not the case. Because I think unless you've had a lot of influence in your life from people that have got a good understanding of different career options and are very experienced within work, you just don't know that. You just assume that you just do the one thing. And I remember my parents saying to me, you're not going to like everything at work, and you've got to stick at that first job. I had my first job after graduation was joining the John Lewis graduate scheme, and that was a good job, and I loved it, and I did and this was quite interesting. I did about 15 different jobs within John Lewis. So I got to experience different things, very different roles within one organization, which was interesting in itself.
But that's important. That's important as well. You in a single organization, you can have many roles, and you're learning.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
But you're learning different. Yeah, but you're also learning different transferable skills in every single one of those roles. But I thought, I mean, my parents had, my mother was a civil servant and my father was a union leader, engineer, literally a guy who climbed up telephone posts. Neither of them went to university. Their view of the path that I would take, just so different from the path that I ended up taking. And thank goodness for mentors mentors and role models and teachers who really opened my eyes up to things that I absolutely in a million years wouldn't have considered. And they, and they're very different from the pictures that the media and the television would also paint for us in potential pathways. So I think we should be really open to the jobs of tomorrow, and the fact that the jobs we even think about today aren't going to be there in 3 years' time. Probably not going to be there. I also like taking responsibility ourselves for the pathway we are on, and exploring and thinking, well, I want to have an impact in the world. We'll figure out what that impact is and then chase it really hard.
Yes, I love that. That's great. So it was interesting earlier you were saying about opportunities have cropped up and you've taken them and it's taken you in lots of different directions. When you've been presented with opportunities that have been way off from things that you've been involved in before, has there ever been a point where you've had a bit of a touch of the imposter syndrome, or have you always been confident that you're going to do a great job and that's not been an issue for you?
I have the imposter syndrome every single day. No, never not really managed to escape that. And I actually think it's fine. That's one of the reasons why I think the community is so important for all of us. It's been other people that pointed out to me that I could do stuff. Okay. And also supported me when I felt uncertain. And we sometimes do feel like imposters, and probably makes me try harder. And it gets the adrenaline going. I don't like if you weren't suffering from the imposter syndrome, you might be straying into hubris or arrogance, and both of those are terrible characteristics, and I think allow you to get absolute broadsided by things that you don't see because you think you know everything. So I think there's I don't think the imposter syndrome that many of us suffer from it's more of a gift, I think, than a problem. And
so see it as a gift and maybe channel those feelings and thoughts into a more positive way, I guess, because I suppose otherwise if maybe you could look at it that if you didn't have it, it might be that you don't care enough about what it is that you're doing. But I also like what you said there about getting reassurance, maybe not the right word, but I guess a bit of a confidence boost from people that that do, because everyone needs a bit of a cheerleader from time to time to remind them that they can do things.
But maybe a tribe as well. I mean, I think
yes.
When I'm uncertain, which is often, I think my tribe is really important. And it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this, but I'm not certain about this or this or this. Can you help me think about it? So I think that going out to our community, widely defined, and helping them think through things when they're uncertain, and B, knowing that if you help others think through their things when they're uncertain, they will also help you think through things when you're uncertain. And uncertainty is fine. I often solve problems by talking them through with others, and I think that's a nice part of being part of a community, and particularly for me, the tech community, and also the female entrepreneurship community. Solving problems with each other is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes bringing together people in events to talk about things that need to be talked about but is really uncomfortable is important. But it's only through discussion that we can see our way through some of the difficult problems that there are, and we shouldn't feel alone in that.
Definitely. And where is do you have a core tribe of people that you would seek support or advice and guidance from, or would it depend on what the topic was?
It really depends for me, it depends on what the topic is. But I've got I have a weird life. I think, well, not a weird life, no, but again, I have wide networks, and because I've been non-exec in portfolio for quite a long time, I try to make sure if I'm going to ask somebody to help me think through something that they really do understand whatever it is I'm asking them to help on. So I think, and in the past I have gone too many times to a single person and asked them advice on something they don't really know about, and gotten pushbacks like, I have no idea, why are you asking, did you think about what you were asking me? So I think I think I try to be mindful of when I'm asking somebody something that I've thought, can this person really help me through, help me think this through. So I know some people get coaches and some people have mentors that they go to over and over and over. That hasn't been a solution. There are people that I have worked alongside for 20, 25, 30 years, and maybe sometimes it's just every other year that I'll sort of go, I think you might have a view on this. And often I'll be, it's like, do you have a view, or do you know somebody that I can talk to that's an expert? I also use social media for that. So, it's not unusual for me to go out onto Twitter or to Facebook saying, I'm thinking about this. Can you help? And you'll be surprised at what comes back, and it comes back super, super fast.
That's really useful. And I guess because you have got a wide network, you can approach people in that way as and when, rather than having to have a set person or a set group that you go to. Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess it would be good to explore social media and LinkedIn in particular, given your history with LinkedIn. So for a lot of young women, they're obviously used to a number of social media platforms for their personal life. But when they hit university age, I guess that's the kind of point where they're thinking about their professional social media profiles. And LinkedIn is clearly still king in terms of being the one to go with. Now, I often get students saying to me that they don't really know how to use it, which is something that I can help them with. But in terms of using it in the way that you've said, around putting questions out there and asking for help, have you got any advice about how people should do that, and what's the best way to go about it, given that they might not have posted anything before?
I think LinkedIn is a fabulous product, and I also think again, it depends. There's lots of advice on how to use LinkedIn, and you should make it your friend. I could not operate without LinkedIn. If I'm going to meet someone, I go look on LinkedIn who I know. I look at what they've done before. It's really helpful for me in research about how to think things through. If I'm interviewing someone for, who's wanting a job, I will look through who they know. I'll get references on them. I think it's super important. Sometimes I'll make a post to LinkedIn about something that we're doing, and the comments that you get back are super interesting. In terms of tribe, I think my go-to thing for tribe might be WhatsApp, and sometimes it's fellow board members and talking about things before a board meeting comes up. It's like, oh, I thought that was strange, or that paper was terrible. It's like, who's going to reach out and tell the author of that paper that we didn't understand it, and and that sort of thing. So social media can allow you to be very in tune with things, and are super helpful. There was a trade mission that I went on with a bunch of female CEOs about 3 or 4 years ago, and every day there are still interactions of that group, that tribe that that we put together, sort of again a cohort, quite a tight cohort. Every day things are being shared between that group of folks as they discover and they navigate their entrepreneurial world with others. So I think they, what I love about the social media is it allows you to find your tribe. Sometimes it's public, you put out a public question on LinkedIn, sometimes it's private, so that you can circulate and reflect on and get feedback from others who are, sort of similar. So I'd use them really enthusiastically. I think they're amazing productivity tools. I think they get you to your answer significantly faster and with greater confidence than you otherwise would. I would encourage you to embrace them enthusiastically. There's lots out there, so find the one that suits you and your method of operating. I literally tend to use them all, but for slightly different things.
Sure. And do you get approached through social media a lot from young people asking for your advice or your views on things?
Yes.
Do you respond to all of them, or is it that?
I can't respond to all of them. There isn't enough hours in a day. But one of the things that, again, but a way of solving that, if you think Founders for Schools, we put together 30,000 people who are very open to interacting with young people in their community. So I've helped put together platforms that enable kids to reach others. And I wish that I could help every single person that ever approached me. It's just not possible. But also even highlighting that there are people around that they can turn to, that are there. Maybe it's teachers, maybe it's I would encourage everybody, especially if they're a young person, to look at Founders for Schools. It's a treasure trove. And also if you're if you're looking for work experience, and Work Finder is a brilliant way, not for permanent employment, but finding your 5 or 6 internships that you want before your permanent employment. These tools are out there, and there's fabulous opportunities there for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Fabulous. So I guess that links to asking for help, really, doesn't it? Around not being afraid to ask for help, but doing it in the right way so that they're most likely to get a response. In terms, let me ask you a little bit about your working pattern, and then I'll have one more question before we finish. But do you work crazy hours?
Do I work? I don't know. What do you define as a crazy hour?
I'm going to guess you're outside of a 9-to-5 kind of girl.
Yeah, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to be affiliated with the projects that I am affiliated with, and I don't actually really even feel like I work in any sense. Mm-hmm. So I do try to make sure that there's balance in my life. I spoke about that earlier. And, used again, when the kids were younger, it's like put them into bed and then I'll probably do stuff for an hour, and, I'll touch base with others. But, sometimes those people are, they're my friends. So, is it social or is it work? And is helping someone who you care about solve a problem that's really perplexing to them or vexing to them, is that work? Yeah. I don't know. So I find it hard to answer your question, because working in my life, it just feels like a privilege to make things happen with people who I adore, and on problems that need to be solved. So yes and no.
I think that's a really important thing to reflect on, though, because a lot of the women that I've been speaking to are, they're all very passionate and enthusiastic about what they do, which is why they've all been so successful. But actually there is that thought that in these times that there's a work-life blend anyway, but actually if you love what you do, then it never feels like work. Like I'd have to sit down and work out how many hours I do a week, because I don't count them and I don't clock in and out, because I enjoy what I do as well. So I think that's a really valuable lesson for people to, if they are kind of watching the clock all the time, then clearly something needs to change and they're perhaps not in the right role. So I think that's something hugely important. And then I guess that leads into work-life balance as well, I guess, too. So
I think if you find yourself doing something that you don't love, you should stop. It's really clear. And if your current skill set prevents you from moving on to something else, then in your spare time, is that work? Acquire a new skill. Upskill yourself. There's plenty, it can be YouTube, it can be Coursera. There's a huge number of things that are available out there for free. All they take is a bit of time for you to, put yourself into a position where you can love what you do. I think it's really important that people love their work. And if you don't like it, it's not good for you. And it's not good for you. It's not good for your customers. It's just not good.
Absolutely.
So, find yourself, someone will love the job that you have, even if you don't. So move on to something you love. That will open up the space for somebody else who, maybe doesn't like what they're doing, but would be very well suited to what you're doing at that point in their career. It's really about maintaining that balance and thinking about what we're here for.
Yeah.
We should be here to solve problems we care about. And if that can be your work, then that's a great thing.
Yeah, great. I totally agree with that. Okay, so just before we finish then, what would be your one key piece of advice that you would like to share with our audience of young women who are starting out in their careers? Is there one thing that you could pass on?
I think chase your dreams and do what you love, and solve problems that are important.
Nice. I like it. To the point. And actually, hopefully everything else will follow if you can do that, and it will bring great things.
And maybe believe in yourself.
Which is harder, I guess, when you're younger and you're uncertain about things. That's one of the hard things, I think, when people are starting out. But hopefully if they find their tribe and they've got people that will support them and they're doing what they love, that will all come together and be a very positive thing. Fabulous. Okay, well, thank you very, very much, Sherry. It's been wonderful to speak to you. Thanks for sharing your time with me today, and for sharing all of those really interesting stories and advice. So I'm sure that will all be very well received by our audience. So thank you very much.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you. And again, I very much look forward to reading your book, and I also look forward to the next time that we're able to meet.
I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Ambition Accelerator as much as I enjoyed recording it. If this was your first experience of tuning in, go back and listen to previous episodes, as there are some brilliant ones. Please do go and check those out. Hope to catch you next time.